can see here, Michael, welcome back. David, Elizabeth, Jessica, Karen, Matthew, Anthony. I won't keep running through the names, but welcome. Some of those names look familiar, some look new. So great to have plenty of new faces on board today. Those of you that aren't sure, is this live? There's today's paper. Yes, it is boring. It's a financial review. Most of you probably don't read it, so you won't see it. But if you want to check if we were doing this live, you'll see that is today's paper. I did see that in a movie with Russell Crowe called Proof of Life, where he holds up the newspaper to prove when his wife was kidnapped. All right, so look, I'm just going to get into some opening comments, run through a few things. So those of you that come in late, great. You won't miss too much. So I'm just going to share my screen. So bear with me for a moment, guys. All right, great. Give me the thumbs up. You can see that okay? Fantastic. Okay, everyone. So as I said, this is question time, 3rd of February, 2021. Very much, again, thank you and appreciate you guys for putting aside your time today. I know there is a lot of things that you could be doing. It's busy. We have seen, the first part of the year, January, done and dusted. When we're into the second month of the year, it feels like Christmas was only a few days ago, but we're well and truly in here. So great to have you guys here, and I think you're going to get a lot out of today's session. Those of you that have been joining us week after week, I have mixed this up a little bit. So if you normally tune out and fall asleep, Greg, I know you sometimes do that when I drone on and on. Keep awake. You're going to see something new and exciting and different today. I've changed up the picture here and got Prime Minister and Treasurer in here during Federal Parliament question time. So I really encourage all of you that are on the call today, feel free to heckle the hell out of us. We love being put on the spot and asked the tough questions. So get stuck into it and look forward to all your questions. Those of you that don't know who Salvo is, or perhaps you're unsure exactly what we do a hell of a lot of things here. But ultimately, what we really do is we help create homes for people. So whether that's buying your first home, perhaps it's building a home, maybe even down the other end of the spectrum where you could be moving out of mum and dad's house for the first time and looking to rent your first home. Maybe you're even a seasoned investor or a first-time investor. Really, if any of that sounds like you, then you're in the right place. We're here to help, and this is what I think you'll get a lot of value out of today, asking us these questions. All right, so I thought it'd be useful just to sort of top off some of this week's themes and major events that we saw, particularly covered in our weekend's newsletter. House predictions for 2021. Always at this time of the year, everyone sets out their predictions. So be interesting to hear everyone's thoughts on what the experts are saying and where that might compare to what they were doing last year. Mortgage brokers, great topic to talk about. We saw record highs get smashed in national house prices despite coronavirus. Love to hear some insight onto that. Obviously, it's the start of a new month, so we see the monthly home value index from CoreLogic, just under 1% growth for the month of January. So typically January is always quiet. Unbelievable to see those kind of results there. Also love to have a chat with everyone about working from home, moving to regional Australia. Is it really a phenomena that it's going to take over, or are people starting to realise that perhaps they don't want to leave the city life? All right, so let's just quickly run through while some latecomers, I can see plenty of people still dropping in. So I just want to quickly run through some stats. Here, first up, we've got the auction clearance rates. Love looking at these. It's always a good indication as to the demand in the market for buyers. You can see here nationally we had just over 80% clearance rate. Two biggest markets in the low 80s. So, really, really strong. You can see the numbers of auctions there, significantly higher than this time last year. As expected, typically last weekend still would have been, the holiday period. Given the extended lockdowns, particularly we had here in Melbourne, the market just hasn't stopped and kept going. So really interesting to see how this pans out for the rest of the year, but I think this is really giving you a good indication as to how strong it is. All right, realestate.com. the largest online listings portal here in Australia. They put out 2 index. The first one we're going to have a look here is the weekly buyer demand index. It's their own index. It obviously just looks at stats off their site, but it's a good indication as to where things are going. So the first graph on the left is nationally where they see the buyer demand index. So they look at here at certain actions the buyers take on the site, and then they rank that as a growth week on week as to how it moves. So you can see very strong, obviously sort of Christmas, New Year's period was down fairly significantly, as you could expect, spending family time. Saw a big bounce in January and just had a small drop off of, I think it was just over 1.4% nationally there. Looking at Victoria, followed a very similar trend, however, still rising strongly, hasn't followed the national trend. So I think that's really part of what we've discussed many a time, that Victoria is really making up for lost time. So 2020 was a tough year for all of us here in Victoria. A lot of property was put on hold. People didn't make just buying and selling decisions. So I think we're seeing that's why there's continued demand there and really running through. All right, let's have a look at the second one. So the second index they produce is the weekly rental demand. Obviously really important for perhaps if you're here just thinking about should you be renting a property now, or really for that strong investor base of customers that we've got. I know rents, we're going to have a chat about that perhaps later in the session, but you can see typically what does tend to happen is that following the Christmas period, New Year's resolutions, everyone starts looking for a new place to live with excitement of what they're going to do and set themselves up. So we see a big surge there. That's a historical trend, and then that's dropped off fairly sharply over the last couple of weeks. However, still quite strong compared to where it was throughout the rest of last year. Here in Victoria, it's followed very much a similar trend, so we're not seeing a lot of difference between there. One of the interesting things we will note here, units or apartments, however you like to call it, are significantly stronger than houses, as would be expected. Typically, most of the rental stock is based in apartments as opposed to houses. I think we might discuss this more in detail and perhaps even next week as well. But these are the results for CoreLogic's index of house prices for January. As I said, just under a 1% increase for the month. Really strong results you can see running across there in all of the major capital cities. So exciting times ahead, I think, for 2021 and anyone looking to buy a home. All right, so my favourite question I ask every week here, I think it's a really, really important one, particularly given the theme of question time. I want to know what's going to win the day, information or knowledge? So just take a moment, think about that. Is it information or knowledge that's going to be more important for you? So the answer is knowledge. Now, let's just unpack that a little bit for a moment. So information, what is it? It's organised data about something, whereas knowledge, on the other hand, is an understanding from experience or education. So really, the knowledge is taking all of that information, turning it into something that you can understand, and ideally create actionable things that you should be doing from that. So, you know, it's really, really key. The easiest shortcut to get that knowledge, find someone who's got the experience, who's been there, done that. If you're here today, this is exactly where you should be. Hit us up with any of your questions and we can help give you that knowledge and run through that information. You know, I touched on it many times. I talk about this all the time. Look, it's difficult and hard sometimes to understand what information you should be paying attention to and how to create that knowledge. You know, social media is now ingrained in our society. You've got Google. You know, pretty much anyone can get out there and put content and information on the internet. So, you know, really you need to have a system and a technique for getting through that, and you'll learn that with experience. As I said, do that shortcut, join us here. Those of you that want to know a technique or a tip to do it, at the end of the session, I'll run through with you what I call the cube technique. So hang around till the end if you want to hear how to do that. All right, so look, I've been chastising you guys for probably 8 or 9 minutes. So those of you that have just joined and you're not sure, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo. and I've helped create more than 11,500 homes for people over the last 20 years. Today, we're joined on the panel by Greg Arbeck, Jack Gian, and Lucas Karras. So these guys will be in the hot seat. I'll be moderating and looking forward to putting them under pressure with your questions. Those of you that have been living under a rock for the last year and don't know how to use Zoom, two simple ways. The Q&A button, as I said, start putting your questions in there now. I'll read through them and ask the panel live those questions. If you prefer and you've got the confidence, feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can fire your questions yourself at the panel. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, so just bear with me a moment. All right, Lucas, you can see everyone okay now? Good. All right, so look, the first question up, I just saw it as I was running through the intro, was just talking about, obviously when I mentioned that, record house prices for 2020. Someone said, yeah, right. Anyone sort of want to elaborate as to what the stats is telling us and where it's sitting today?
Yeah, James, I think just when we looked at the figures at the end of 2020, just in December itself, there was an overall medium increase, that's nationally. So the median price is what Lucas talked about last time, of over 4%. So that was in December itself. And then we look at there were certain overperformers within that period, but generally speaking, we've seen an increase. And a very key thing here that we picked up in terms of the data that we then obviously analyze is that these increases are above pre-COVID prices. So this is not increases after we've dropped by some of the predictions. These are looking at prices that were pre-COVID. So if you look at year on year, there's been a huge increase. So even though we've had that slump over the COVID, when you look at the actual statistics, the figures are actually higher by an average of over 4%, looking at pre-COVID prices, not after they've dropped.
So, Greg, if I'm understanding you right, effectively you're saying house prices have performed even better than the figures are showing because we took in that initial drop from the peak prices in, say, March. Corona took hold. We all know house prices dropped a bit. They've gained all of that drop back plus above and beyond.
And that's the exciting thing. When you look at the data, you sort of go, is that possible? But the data is there. It shows very clearly that the increases in prices are from pre-COVID prices. So that's a very, very exciting sort of a stat to have a look at and digest.
Okay. I've got a question here from Patricia. She's asking, I think following through from Greg just mentioning and perhaps me summarising there, talking about house prices falling during lockdown. Anyone got any of those stats on where they fell and what sort of happened?
Yeah, look, James, we know that during the lockdown in September specifically, we had prices did fall cumulative 2.2%.
Okay. So, Greg's 4% growth, we're sort of talking potentially there was a 6% rebound through that period. So I'm going to ask a question now. So apologise to all the callers on that. I want to know, what are some of the reasons why we've seen such strength and confidence in that growth happen then?
Look, a number of reasons. First of all, the ongoing stimulus packages that are out there and available. You've got the stronger economic growth expectations. You have the record low mortgage rates. And as well as that, you've got the good news of the vaccine rollout, which is due to happen next month. So, put all of those things together, happening at once, pretty much, it gave people the confidence they were looking for.
Okay. Question here from Margaret saying, well, tell us, what are the forecasts? We mentioned that before. So, Lucas, maybe tell us, what are the experts predicting? And if you've got it, I'd love to know what they were sort of predicting, you know, in the throes of Corona versus what they're now predicting at the start of this year. It'd be great.
Yeah, look, most of the house experts or gurus, as I like to call them, they were sort of predicting drops between 10 to 30%. And I'll get a little bit into more detail. But if we look now, for example, UBS predicts 10% increase this year. They were looking 10 to 50% originally decrease. So now they've come back with a 10% increase. You got the Westpac chief economists, which are predicting 7.5% growth this year and the same for next year. They predicted a 20% price drop. And now they've turned around and they said this is a very good increase, and not just this year, but next year as well. Then you've got HSBC. They sort of predict a 6% increase. Out of all the major banks, actually, they're the ones that predicted, well, everybody was predicting a drop. They were predicting an increase of 0 to 3%, like 0 to 3%. So they were the most accurate ones to date, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then you've got the managing director of SQM Research, which predicts 9% increase this year. So look, very close to, if not double digits increase predicted for this year.
Okay. Yeah, look, that's a very interesting sort of turnaround, you know, to hear some of those numbers, which, you know, on the one hand, leads me to say, don't listen to any predictions, unless they're positive, obviously. You know, I think we all like to feel good about where we're heading. But yeah, look, it's interesting to see that turnaround. Okay, so I've got a question here from Richard, just talking about, you know, working from home, and I think he believes that's a new phenomena, and everyone's going to move regional Australia. You know, is this happening? Has anyone got a thought on this? You know, is it definitely? I know people have moved. Is it a big phenomenon? Is it something we should be worried about?
I don't believe it's initially people were fairly concerned about it, and I think initially it's a little bit of it's exciting at first. We're not moving in the city, but generally speaking, when you start realizing, and there are a lot of stories out there, a lot of people that we can relate to. Once you have lived in the city,
why aren't people leaving, Greg? Like, why wouldn't people leave?
There's just so much. When you're in the city, and I'll get to my own personal experience because I'm actually a farm boy, but going out to the farm's fun, but generally speaking, it's for a weekend, it's awesome. And when you're in lockdown, you start thinking this is the right way, but when you start looking at the reality of it, when you're in the inner city, you've got everything. You're cutting your commute. You're cutting, there's everything on your doorstep. You've got restaurants, you've got cinemas, you've got parks, you've got schools. The way that our cities have developed is that it's designed for families. It's not, and people that want to live in the city. You're actually getting more by living in the city than what you would be by living out on a farm on the peninsula. And that's coming from personal experience.
Yeah. So I know you've mentioned it there. You recently took advantage of some lower rents and rented an apartment here in the city, and you're loving it, aren't you?
Yeah, I thought I was going to hate it. I just thought it'll be convenient. I just thought at the time, hey, this is going to be convenient. I'll walk to work, and essentially now I drive in. It goes to my car park. Like I said, car park, South African, but I never see my car until I'm buggering off to go back to the farm, which for a day or two, and I can't wait to get back to the city. It's just so convenient. Everything's there. It's a very, very different lifestyle. So from considering that I would hate it, I'm a complete convert, and looking at some of the articles of people talking about it, I relate to it so well. You bike, you walk everywhere. You've got the gym around the corner. You know, when I'm out on here, where I've got to get in the car, go to the gym, get back in the car, drive back. Everywhere there, I literally walk out my front door. I can either jump on my bike or I walk to the gym, which I do. You've got restaurants all around you, so you've got the freedom of choice. Our cities are so well, specifically Melbourne and South Bank and places like this, just plugging our place. You've got lots of parks and entertainment and everything around you. It's just amazing. It's really, really That's completely taken me off guard, and I can understand why people say, why would you want to leave the city? It's a novelty, but I can't see it lasting for long.
Okay. Yeah, look, I noticed as you were talking, Joseph said, how good is the tan? So I know you've been getting into the exercise, so I'm sure people will be recognised. You're about 7 foot tall. So if you see a big hulking South African motoring around the tan, that's great. Grab him, let him know, welcome him back to city life.
I remember I was telling you the other day as well, when I was doing push-ups on the balcony, and suddenly I saw the balcony move and I thought, hang on, let me rather go to the gym.
All right, let's park that one there. There's a question here from Patricia, just talking about mortgage brokers and isn't it expensive? So, perhaps if I can rephrase Patricia's question, what is a mortgage broker? What do they do?
Patricia, like the mortgage broker, like these days we are quite familiar. That's because I think in old days, and the people used to sitting down and chatting with the local bank manager just to try to, keep the good relationship with them. But this stage, everybody, I think, goes to the mortgage broker, which is like us, knows more the real estate than anybody else. The mortgage broker is sort of the expert. They knows about the product from the different bank, from the lender. They can package everything and give you the best possible loan product to the client. So that's sort of the people, expert.
Right. Okay. And so just thinking here, you mentioned obviously one of the things we do is help people with home loans. So shameless plug, anyone looking for a home loan and want to check, give us a call and we can help you out there. But I was surprised by how many lenders we had access to and on that panel. Why is that? Like, how many do we have from memory? I can't remember. And why?
We have a 28 different lenders we can have access and to have, and to be remember the 28 different lenders, each lender they got a different product, and which makes even they give you more option, but this all comes from us, so we can give you the quite the more choice. Like we said, if you go with us, I go with the mortgage broker, there's sort of the 3 benefits I can generally speaking. The first, the benefit is about, I think the mortgage broker is do all the having all the having work and form the customer. So, and if you do the research online for the different lender, different the product, which is impossible, which takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, but give all the work to the mortgage broker, they can let you know which product, which lender, and which is most suits you. Secondly, and as a good mortgage broker, they always have the good relationship with the lender, which put them like in the very good position to negotiate the best deal for the clients. Like if you go with us, we have the best mortgage broker. We can go to the different lender to have the best deal for our clients. That's the second benefit. The third benefit is the mortgage broker always has the latest updated product information from different lender. Like once the interest rate is dropped, and the mortgage broker will knows, and the mortgage broker will come to the client and say, would you like to have a better deal? I can help you to do the refinance, which save you lots of the money. For us, we don't have time and to doing search online, say what is the interest rate today? Is there any drop? So those work is all from the mortgage broker. Most important, the service from the mortgage broker is almost free because they getting the commission from the lender when the mortgage has been settled. And the last one, I give you the bonus, the benefits is goes to the mortgage broker. They can give you the best package which suits the clients the criteria. Like if you are the investor, your first home buyer, as we know, the different lender got a different product. the mortgage broker will be able to give you, this is the best possible product for you. Every single people got different situation. They can give you like a personal service sort of. So that's the feel the benefits of thinking. If you go with us, go with the professional mortgage broker, you can get it.
Okay, great. Karen, I saw you wrote a question about this too. Hopefully, I think Jack's probably covered that off. But perhaps, what I took from that and the summary is that, mortgage brokers write loans day in, day out. They've got the relationships. In terms of the volume, you might be taking out a home loan, once every 10 years, for example. So really to be able to leverage, as we've spoken about, people that have been there, done that, get that experience to get you the best deal possible, really is where I see the benefit from a mortgage broker. All right, so look, I'm conscious of time that we're getting close to it. So I'm just going to leave that and move on. I've got a question here from Chris, just talking about rents. He says he owns a property in Sydney CBD and his rents have dropped dramatically. Anyone got a sort of a view or an overview, with where did 2020 see rents go, nationally and also, I guess, in the big capital cities?
Yes, James. I was actually looking at some articles the other day based on that. And around the capital cities, rents sort of did drop, especially Melbourne and Sydney being the two biggest cities. And we had a drop of about 7.6% last year.
Okay, and nationally, across the board, rents up, down, sideways?
They've actually coming up. The rents are up, so that's a good thing. The good thing, people are still looking somewhere to live. They need somewhere to sleep. So the rents.
So we haven't all resorted to sleeping on the streets just yet.
Definitely not. Definitely not. So look, yes, the rents are up and keep rising.
Okay. Look, for the callers on the line now, we obviously talk about this all the time, but perhaps for those that aren't sure, can you explain why have we seen, nationally, rentals go up, yet the two biggest inner city markets have struggled and have prices go down? What's the reason for that?
Look, it's quite simple, really. It's not that all of a sudden everybody decided they don't want to live in the city, because everything that, the lifestyle work, it's predominantly education,
everything that Greg touched on.
Correct. There you go. One of our own. But look, what we saw happen together is, first of all, the stall overseas migration. So the tourism cut down. Some 80,000 students that live in the CBD not able to come back yet. So, we're talking some huge numbers.
We also saw the short-term letting as well sort of disappear as well. That
Airbnb, all that stuff. Yeah. So a lot of these sort of things created a lot of a big gap. Also, the remote working sort of lured a lot of people to move out of the city. As you know, people, even on Monday, this week only 50% of the workforce was able to come back into the city. And now we're seeing the vibe again. But, when you have all those things happen at once and you have the lockdown, it makes sort of sense that.
All right, so I'm guessing that Chris is feeling more and more depressed the more he listened to you. How can we help Chris? What are we seeing? What's positive on the horizon? How are we going to see this turn around and what's ahead for these inner city rents then?
Look, first of all, as you said earlier, nationally, the rents have started to increase. Even in the city, I'd say we did have a drop of 7.6%. Now we've seen a 3.3% comeback. So there has been an increase. We see a lot of people that always dream and love to live in the city, but weren't in a position to do that before, because either there weren't any apartments available or the rentals were too high. So now we're attracting different kind of people that finally can afford and live the dream they want, which is in the city or in the fringe of the city. And of course, once the COVID restrictions be lifted and people can travel and the students can come back again, pretty much overnight, everything will change.
Okay. All right. Well, look, there were more questions, so we will hang around at the end and try and get through them. I think I just want to wrap up with a few comments. I can see we're at the top of the hour now. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen again. So that's it for the formal part of today's session. Those of you that have got to jump off, appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you again next week. As always, we are here 2:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time every single Wednesday. Feel free to drop by whenever you can. We're also hosting this live on Facebook. It's obviously not interactive, so if you want to have your part like everyone did today and ask the questions, Zoom is the best way to do it. So from me and the rest of the guys on the panel, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again.